Welcome to the Letter Podcast. I'm Mike Popovich from the repository, along with Aiden Brueck from the Green Newsletter, and we're here on our second edition here in the offices of the repository.
Skeleton.
In front of my desk.
In front of his desk.
By the way.
Mind you, that is a picture of the 1997 World Series champions.
That would have been, that placard would have gone in newspapers had Jose Mesa not blown that save.
He did.
Which he did, and still to this day is the most devastating loss. If you grew up as a Cleveland sports fan, that I ever experienced.
I mean, that was my, well, obviously, Cubs. That was mine.
That was yours.
That was mine.
Obviously, you're not old enough to remember that, but that was and the thing about it was, what the Cavs did in 2016 kind of soothed that loss a little bit.
Yeah, because I was very okay with the Indians not winning, because the Cavs won, but it could have been a year of champs, Cleveland, which would have been awesome.
The story I like to tell about that game, that Game 7, and I know we're delving off into what we were originally going to talk about, but I think that's why you and I work together very well. I worked that game, Game 7 versus the Cubs, and this is something you're probably going to end up finding out that you're going to have to do in your career. So it's kind of looking like the Cubs are going to win late in the game. And I've got this Cubs-related sidebar story that I'm working on during the game. That was back in our deadline days when you had to get those stories out. And Rajay Davis hits that game-tying home run in the late innings to tie the game. Yeah, that was a good story I wrote. Delete it, start over. So those things happen.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to experience that one of these
days.
How
did my DoorDasher just go back? Sorry. Anyway. Anyways, guys. So we just finished up week 2 of high school football here in Northeast Ohio and in all of Ohio. For those who are watching the video recording of this, you're going to see all your scores from the week down there in our lower third. But we just wanted to highlight a couple of games this week, give our thoughts, give our commentary, let you guys know, what you need to know about everything that transpired this past week. But I think that it's only appropriate that we start with Fish versus Jackson. Now, listen, I am a diehard Green Bulldogs fanatic, and as much as I try to not let that bleed into my journalistic endeavors, there are times where I see other Federal League teams fail, and nothing makes me more happy. Nothing just fills me with joy more than seeing Jackson lose. And I will say that Jackson is one of those teams that you can count on to be consistently good every single year. And that's never been an issue for them because they breed athletes. And apparently they go up against Fitch, who finished 7-4 last year. They blow it. And it's not necessarily that, it was a tough loss. It's a 2-score loss. That's not fun. But I know that TJ Parker, who is the Austintown Fitch head coach, he was talking about in his, post-game interviews with Cliff from the repository. He was saying that he was really relieved because he knows that Jackson's always a good football team. But stuff happens, and like we've said all the time, high school football is anybody's game. And it just so happens that Fitch just came out with a win, and despite if Eckerman was able to get something going or not, I think that Jackson still has a lot to prove, but I think that they're going to prove it. I don't think that that's going to be an issue. I know I said Eckerman. Lucas Eckerman he's the quarterback for Jackson. But anyways.
Now here's what I'll say. Now obviously I can't look at that situation the way you do. But I'll say this. Good for Jackson for, tackling the two opponents that they did early in the you go to Menor and play. You play Fitch, who's been very good. I think that's only going to make them better. I look at another school who's done that early in the football season is Glen Oak. You go play Bill Angeles St. Joseph in your opener. Ohio State recruit Bo Jackson. Anybody named Bo Jackson has to be good.
Has to be good, naturally.
And then you turn around and then you play MACtion in 2. You're 0-2. That's only going to make you better.
100%, and especially now that you're getting all those non-conference games out in the first 3 weeks. Now you're kind of prepared to go against all these Federal League opponents and try to secure a Federal League title. And that doesn't even go for just Federal League teams. There are tons of teams in Ohio that, across the world. You see it in college football all the time. All these MAC schools that go into the Big House and go to Ohio State, and all of these teams that improve by getting stomped on. Because learning physicality early in the season and getting comfortable in your own game plan against such a rough team that's going to be able to shut you down just tells you, hey, here's where we need to fit all the gaps. Here's where we need to fill in all the holes. And going into practice for week 3, I'll tell you that Jackson going to fill in those holes, and that there's not a doubt. There's not a doubt. Jackson is still going to come back. They're still going to finish. They're still going to finish their non-conference game strong, then go into a Federal League schedule that I think this year is going to be a lot more competitive. And I don't just mean that because I'm a Green fan. I mean that because there is a lot of tough competition. Consistently you're going to have Hoover that's going to give you Hoover's always going to give you a run for your money. Glen Oak will always give you a run for your money, unless you're Massillon. And Lake will give you a run for your money. Not careful, because Lake will just run the ball until it works. But it's good to prepare now for what's to come. And I think that this is not something that Jackson need to hang their heads about, because you lost to Fitch, but what's really important is that you win.
Right, yeah. And if you win the Federal League, you're going to be in the postseason, for sure. Second place in the third place in the Federal League postseason.
Well, if you do anything, if you do so much as breathe, you'll probably be in the postseason. You'll probably get a game.
But that's the optimal word. You got to let the season breathe.
Exactly.
Before we make judgments on where our team's at. I think we know who's going to be there down the road. I saw one of those teams on Friday. I saw Massillon play Glen Oak. I thought, they had to go out to Oregon to play the London-based NFL Academy team at Nike headquarters.
Which is interesting that they have a football team in London.
There's a lot of football teams.
Are there actually? Well, okay. Well, not football. American
Chelsea,
Pigskin.
Fulham,
We're talking about
Tottenham.
We're talking about pigskin American gridiron football.
I'm going to get you to be a Premier League fan one
I
of these days. I really am. If I do anything outside of helping you along the way here with your career, it's you'll be a big Premier League fan.
I did just get into F1. I think F1 is sick.
I haven't gotten into.
You don't have to. F1's kind of an acquired taste. I can't even lie. Kind of an acquired taste, but
I mean, you have to get up. You have to get up like much earlier than
get up at
you
like
and I
4.
did today to watch F1, don't you?
yeah. I mean, you do.
With the Premier League, you only have to be up by 7:30 to watch the early game.
Anyways.
Don't mind me.
Yeah, don't mind me. Part of my reach, pal.
All right.
No. No. I was just.
Feel free. I printed all those out for us so we can talk here.
No, yeah. But absolutely.
But before we got into that sidebar there about the Premier League and F1, no, I was talking about MACtion. They go play out in Oregon, and in addition to playing a football game, you could go visit Nike and all of that, and that had to be kind of like such a cool experience. And the thing about it is, they didn't let that linger into their game against Glen Oak. There was no hangover from it or whatever, and they just go out and take care of business. And Jalen Slaughter, quarterback, having a really strong start this year.
He's good. He's good.
And when you have as many weapons as they do, their first drive of the game, he completed 5 passes and like 5 different receivers on pass.
Yeah, I mean, if you're spreading the ball out that much, I mean, there's really only going up from there. It's hard to lack in a passing game when you have that many. Jalen Slaughter at your 8 more is 7, right? Got so many pieces and game plan around such a talented roster. It really helps.
I think their biggest, and don't get me wrong, I didn't watch outside of the state championship game against Holman, which I just went to out of curiosity, because they had never won a playoff title. Thought that would have been cool to see if they did. I think if they had more holes to fill on defense. I think they graduated the majority of between offense and defense. I thought they lost more players on defense. So if that defense can play the way it played Friday, Glen Oak, I mean, they're set. They're set for another long run.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It goes without mentioning that MACtion is always going to be a big contender for any football championship. I mean, if you take this MACtion team, and if you put them against the Floridian houses, they're going to put up a fight.
They play a team from, now, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on New Jersey high school football, but they play a team from New Jersey who I take it is very good this week. So, it's good to have those challenges like that on your schedule. The UK team, even though the score is 45-0, you're playing a Glen Oak team, a team in the county who's outside of their federal league games, that's their game. This year that they want to play. They play this New Jersey team. A few weeks from now, they're going to play St. Ed's. That's always been. I've never seen a MACtion St. Ed's game, but that's always been
it's
fun
bucket
game
list for me. Bucket list for me. I would love to go to a St. Ed's MACtion game just to see the beat each other up.
We should do a podcast from there.
Yeah, we probably could. It's not a
Lakewood
bad idea.
Stadium. It's a nice.
Lakewood is nice. Lakewood
Yeah.
is nice.
Lakewood's a cool city. Besides the fact that my best friend lives there, she lives in a cool town.
No, but like we mentioned earlier, our I just totally lost my train. I can't even lie.
Well, we were
totally
talking about,
lost my train of thought.
we were talking about some of the Federal League.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh,
teams.
Mike.
So
give me some.
there you
Yeah,
go.
There we go.
I like it how we can go off on a tangent sometimes, but
pull that back.
we got to pull it back
No.
together sometimes
No,
too.
No, but we were talking last week about Canton South and how Canton South kind of doesn't get as far as they do without Poochie Snyder. And Dover, who beat my Bulldogs last week, go into a home game against Canton South and absolutely. And that's not to say that Canton South are nothing without Poochie Snyder, but Canton South has always been one quarterback away from solid performance. All the pieces fell into place last year with Poochie because they had back play, and now that they have all those pieces on offense, but still trying to build up their quarterback play, confident passing game. You're not going to see a big influx of victories. But I think that as we've said for every team, first couple of weeks, I mean, it's not too late. Never too late.
No, it isn't.
It's never too late. And especially with the playoff format, going to be just fine. 3-4 losses, just
Right.
fine.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're obviously, Dover. Dover beats a Federal League team last. Canton South, they've got a good man down there coaching them. Matt Dennison. Had so much success at New Philadelphia. The son of an icon of an Akron football coach. Back in the day, Jim Dennison. He's going to get that. They're going to get themselves turned around. I'm pretty confident.
Yeah.
Going into their Pac-7 season. You just can't talk enough about what Poochie. It was so much fun to watch him.
I mean, clearly he left such an impact that we're talking about him after he's graduated.
Right. He's sitting there at Sacred Heart right now, and
He's just like still
getting love from Stark County.
Yeah, Stark County. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Don't forget your roots, Poochie.
No. Well, when you're the all-time leading passer in the county, you deserve it. You deserve
100%.
it. He was so much fun to watch, and such a great kid to talk. Just so down to earth and everything, and I just wish him. I just wish him well.
Absolutely. But with him gone, Canton South they're gonna have to leap over a lot of hurdles. And this is just one of them. But I think Canton South still has massive potential. They retained at least 2/4 last year, from my knowledge, and that's a group of has such dynamic and charismatic quarterback play that now they kind of have to take this bigger role in leading the offense. And if they can do that, then I think Canton South they're going to be just fine. They're going to be.
Another guy they had to overcome the loss of was Rome Cox, who was
Who was the
running back who
Yep.
transferred to Glen Oak, and who, unfortunately for him, got hurt early in the Massillon game. And if Glen Oak had enough hurdles to climb to try to stay in that game, that was an even bigger one after they lost him. So, but we'll see. We'll see. And I agree with you. It'll be interesting to see, once the new guys from Kansas South get their feet wet and get a few games under the belt, see what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, we're talking about some federal league play. My Green Bulldogs had a great win against Riverside from Painesville. Another note, we'll say that I was watching so I've been able to actually attend any football games. I'm usually at every Green football game, no matter where it is. Always make that trip because I write about them. And I was watching. I've been conditioned to watch live streams of all of Green's games, and for these past 2 weeks, I've had to listen to Q92 radio covering games and all those technical difficulties. I'm watching this stream, and on the score bug, it says Green versus Painesville.
Painesville what?
Painesville what?
Painesville.
I don't know, but they are called the Beavers, so that is awesome.
This was a green stream, right? Because that was a.
This is the green stream. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but they made the score bug say Painesville. Oh.
Maybe you talk a little about you do. In addition to your writing, you've done play-by-play.
Yeah, I do. I used to do play-by-play for our basketball team.
But not football.
Not football.
Okay.
If I mean, the dream is love to talk about football. I feel like a lot of the times I don't give myself enough. Like, it's really bad. I know a little too much. I've never stepped. Well, I shouldn't say I've never stepped on the field. I play flag football with my buddies, but I tried to play football when I was young. My parents wouldn't let me. My brother Isaac, he played football, broke his collarbone like twice. My parents were like, we're not paying the $950 pay to participate. It's like, I'm good, but play-by-play for football has always been a dream. The only thing I hope to not be when I grow up is Tony Romo, and that's just that.
Okay, because he kind of
a, exactly what
I know what you're thinking, and I can't. I agree. Let's just say that. I agree. Okay?
Anyways, to just talk about the Green game. I mean, obviously this is my expertise, so if you just want to fire away all these questions, I'd be more than willing to have a nice conversation about Green football. The big thing for Green this year is that we don't have, and I say we, is that they don't have Antonio Martin or Mike Shaw, both of which earned All-Ohio honors last year. Now Shaw ACL, Antonio ACL, both are devastating. Antonio is the big part of that dynamic offense. And the fact that, when he was playing his sophomore year, Green was kind of well, they weren't kind of. They were a total 5 wide offense. They did not have. It was total air raid. It was total. We're just West Coast. Let's just let it rip and 5 wide. We don't need anybody in the backfield besides a quarter. And a lot of teams found out like, okay, well, not hard to solve this puzzle. So put in all those pieces, and Green was easily defeated in 2022. 2023, see Antonio Martin playing more of a running back in the game plan, being able to kind of switch to now multiple just makes it so much easier for Green to kind of be unpredictable and even better. Now Antonio Martin doesn't. Green's got a lot of pieces. Tyson Honka, who's a junior this year, who he threw for what 215, 216 against Riverside, and there were some times during that game he could have had a better read, but at the end of the day he got the job, and that's what matters most. Even if
game-winning touchdown pass
exactly
late, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just if you're able to get the job done, that speaks volumes more than okay. Well, I threw interceptions. Now he only threw 1 interception against Riverside, and wasn't that detrimental. I mean, he's got an arm and he's got the accuracy. Now, I will say that there is some work to be done with every quarterback and not just Hunter. I think that it's hard to make the right read. So much external factors come. And that's how his first pick happened. He was getting pressure from the left, from the left side of Riverside's D line, and missed a wide open AJ Fortunato on the other side. Try to make something happen. And you know what? I would rather my quarterback learn from decision making than just always be perfect. Because if you're always perfect, there's no room for improvement. And high school football is all about high school. Still in school, still trying to be taught.
Right.
So
you're not the finished product.
You're not the finished product. No, but that doesn't matter if you can get the job. And Hunka has consistently been able to get the job done. You saw him last year. He sat behind Samino Manson. Manson goes down with a collarbone injury after McKinley. Hunka steps in as a sophomore, and has one of the better rushing. In terms of rushing for a quarterback that Green's had in years. And I mean, he's quick on his feet, and just like Antonio Martin, he adds that dynamic offense. Green is not just a team that kind of spreads everything out, because not one person can be spread too thin. Everybody is not spread thin, but the spread got obviously Antonio Martin's out, but like I was saying, kid is a dynamic natural athlete. The fact that he send him on a streak down the field, or you could send him on a screen, he'll get probably the same yard that he would either. That's a piece for Green that they have in both Martin and Honka. And that's something that really. Another thing I will say, Anthony McMichael III, Green, this week, 86-yard touchdown, receiving touchdown for him. Now, Anthony McMichael III did not actually play offense last year. Play strictly special teams and playing safety. And now that he's kind of transitioned into this two-way player, it's been really fun to watch him kind of flourish and finally get these moments, and finally get some recognition. Because last year, Antonio Martin, he was mostly the pick guy. Antonio Martin, he's always on the best receiver, so of course he's always going to get the most targets. And when he can make a play like that, and when he can make plays like diving interceptions and whatever, instead of McMichael coming on with a zone defense on like a 3-4 zone, going over and getting the pick instead, Antonio could just do that all himself. Now that Anthony's been able to, or now that McMichael has been able to kind of transition into this two-way player, without him, you're still seeing him play safety, but you're also seeing him get a lot of spotlight during these offensive. It's really nice to see. Green just has such a dynamic offense this year as opposed to years previous. And not to toot my school's horn, but I think that once they get Antonio Martin back, they're going to be even. I will say that Mike Shaw hurt does not help. Two-way lineman who had first team All-Ohio last year, All Federal League, district, everything, every accolade that you could think of in Northeast Ohio, he had. And losing him does not help. But Green has a lot of these young guys like Dario Lombardi, who's a junior this year. Zane Alcadi, also a junior, getting more reps. Cam White, who's a senior this year, who wasn't able to see the field a lot last year because he was injured. Wyatt Knowlton. You got all these kids that are coming in to fill all these roles. And, I mean, we were talking about that with Canton South. After you graduate all these people, it's kind of hard to have the same consistent season. It is a very difficult achievement, but that's why it's an achievement. It's a difficult task to be so consistent in high school football because you got 4 years with this kid and he's gone, and your roster is always changing. You can't just sign a high school kid to a $120 million 6-year contract.
Right.
You got to sign them for.
Well, I was going to say, especially when roster, you're in the 40s, 50s. That's hard to kind of.
Not easy, but like we were saying with Canton South, all these kids are taking up new roles. And that's always going to be the theme every year, is once you graduate all these kids from these good teams, is it possible that with the coaching that they have and with the returning talent that they have, is it possible to remain a consistent threat in district? I think Green, despite these losses, still have a shot. I think that they're definitely in the running for a home playoff game, or for home playoff games this year. And I think that they could make a run, but we just saw Jackson lose to Fitch. Anything can happen. And Green's going to take on Talmadge next week at home, which I will be at. Praise the Lord. I will be at that one. And
no live stream for you.
No live stream for me. I'm all visual, baby. I sit down on my laptop at halftime and I'm like, hey, instead of watching the band. Shout out to the Green High School Marching Band. They're awesome. And I'm not just saying that. I'm not just saying that. No, but Green will definitely have a game against Talmadge. And the reason I leave that statement so open-ended is because, well, I don't know. Madison could walk into, who are they playing next week?
The Bergen Catholic.
New Jersey team?
From New Jersey.
Yeah, Madison could go into that game, have the best first half that they've ever had. Let's put up 70 in the first half, which never happened. But let's put up 70 in the first half. And then they come out second half. It's just the worst team you've ever seen play. And that's just what's possible, and that's quite possibly what could happen. I'm not saying that will happen, but I am saying that that's where high school football's at.
If I have to go to the Massillon and Catholic game and there's a 70-point first half and I have to do a live file, that's a lot of work. So let's not go there.
Do you want the chocolate?
No, I'll take it. Thank
That's
you.
All you. No, but anyways, just to
it's reduced sugar and low fat.
It's reduced sugar and low fat?
That is me.
Hell yeah. Oh,
that is me.
Lucky mushrooms. But I just wanted to you were at at Massillon Glen Oak.
Yes.
Talking about Massillon, we always talk about McKinley. McKinley traveled up to Avon, who was just talking about consistency in high school football. Avon. That is the definition of consistent in high school football. At least in Ohio. And McKinley traveled to Avon, and McKinley put up a fight. So I just want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, from what I've understood from what happened in that game, there was a couple things that happened. McKinley had actually 2 scores called back. One by a penalty on a touchdown pass. Another one was ruled a complete pass. So, that's how close they came to, turning what was a 1-score deficit against them into a win. Now, that said, it also sounded like McKinley's got a lot to clean up as far as, execution, penalties, and everything. So, when you play a team like Avon, you gotta be at your best.
There's just no debate. That's just where it's got to be.
And, again, we talked about these challenges that these federal league schools, play. Glen Oak playing Massillon, Kinley playing Avon. You kind of I don't want to say you're at the bar is raised to where you're at or whatever, because we talked about earlier, okay, it's week 2 and it's early, and it is early, stuff like that. But it sounded like McKinley's defense comes up with 3 interceptions. Dante McClellan's going to Missouri, comes up with 2. But it seemed like, from what I understood and from what I didn't, I know there was a live stream of that game out there.
What do they call McKinley?
I don't know. I don't know.
Sorry.
Or they don't call Massillon Washington, even though it's everybody calls it Massillon. But yeah, that's they just have to clean some stuff up. What I understand, and I'm sure they'll be in a good position to do that.
Absolutely. And I saw this quote from what's it called? From what's his name? Avon's head coach, Mike Elder. And I wanted to read this out loud. And this is from Josh Weir's article on the Avon McKinley game. This is what Mike Elder had to say. He goes, "You look at the amount of turnovers and the amount of penalties on both sides. There was no rhythm in that game." And I mean, this goes back to literally what we've been talking about the whole. Just you genuinely have no idea what until both teams take the field, play those 4 quarters, and I mean, that's what it takes. If you have to have a slugfest, to reach that finish line through all three phases, then so be it. But McKinley was able to hang despite all of those complications, and Yvonne almost didn't pull out with it. Imagine if McKinley didn't have those 2 scores called back. It would be a different story.
McKinley was able to get an onside kick late too, and have a shot to tie the game, and they just couldn't
come down.
They just couldn't do it.
But the fact that they were able to even recover an onside kick, that's I love me some special teams. I love special teams.
You gotta practice that maybe one day a week, don't you?
Special teams?
Well, no, onside kicks.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure teams do that at least. I'm not privy to go into practices.
I mean, I'm not even allowed to practice it.
You're going to learn that that's going to be the case moving forward too.
I do. Oh, I this is my first year that I ever been on high school sports, and everybody's got a schooling. I shoot. Green head coach Mark. Shoot him an email. Hey, mind if I attended some practices? He doesn't respond. Leaves me on open, or he leaves me undelivered. And so then they have their first scrimmage against New Philadelphia. Scrimmage against New Philadelphia. Of course, afterward, I go up to him and I'm like, hey. So I'm to some practices, and there's some things in practices themselves. I didn't think of it. But
well, yeah, it's not a pro. It's they, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% well versed in football. Where if I watched a practice, that's, I like going out. I like going out to practices to at the end when it's done, because to talk with coaches or kids, whatever, and not so much. I don't like talking on the phone. I don't. So always the input, is always the good thing.
Yeah.
But I think I would hope that even if I was there for like the last 5 minutes, that I could be trusted, and when you do this job, you don't have a dog in the fight anymore. So, but
yeah, I just I think that that about does it for week 2. I mean, Blake beat Bernie Kosar's old team. They beat Boardman.
Perry shut out St. Vincent St. Mary.
Perry did shut out St. Vincent St. Mary, and that surprised me.
And that's 2 shutouts in a row of the season for Perry.
I mean,
that hasn't happened in like 4 years, and I think we talked about it last week. Defensive coordinator, former head coach Keith Wakefield, and boy, he's got that defense playing really well.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you have that. I mean, I imagine that Perry is still rocking a wing tee. Offense.
They've thrown the ball now. Don't get me wrong; it's not like I've seen Perry every week. But
that's what I'm saying. I mean, I haven't seen Perry. I just know that they are notoriously, that wing tee.
But they've thrown the ball, from what I have seen, a little bit more than I remember.
Yeah,
in the past year.
I mean, we played them last year. Well, we had lost to Perry last, or Green lost to Perry last because Perry just ran. Say our as if I'm on the team. No, but they just run the ball. Perry likes running the ball, and if it works, it works. But Perry with 2 shutouts. I mean, that's scary. I mean, Jackson loses to pitch. Jackson could lose to Perry.
Perry will, again, will get a good judge when the league season starts, because that's in recent years, that's kind of where they've stumbled. Has been in their league, and their hope much improved. League play this year.
Yeah. But in Louisville in Alliance, Louisville came up big. Second half of that game. Come off of such a scary injury with Jacob Galbraith, and all of our thoughts go to him. Was carted off the field during that game, but losing a senior captain like that is not optimal, and that sucks. And the fact that they were able to rally, with 2 defensive touchdowns game, kind of off the spirit of their off the captain. Feel good. It makes me feel happy.
I'd like to see that program get back to where it was years ago. Yeah. It's had some down years recently, and when Louisville's good, I mean, they're not in the league, so they're not. We're not. It's not really that they're playing anybody.
There are talks about them rejoining the federal.
That would be. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that.
I heard some of it, but I digress.
But Chris Kappas, former Mount Union player, former Mount Union coach, was a finalist to become the head coach when Harris went to Toledo. Second year there, he's got now his program established, so hopefully, for them that they can get back to where they were.
Yeah, absolutely. But Louisville probably going to. I mean, Louisville ends up being senior night opponents, homecoming game opponents every year. That's not. I don't think that's going to be as much of a athletic director. Louisville is always they have big, strong kids, and you're always going to have such a physical game from Louisville, no matter where you're playing. Anything, any factor is never gonna hinder the fact that Louisville is a physical. They got a solid defense. Apis, they're going to be set. As far as I'm concerned, Louisville is not a team that you need to overlook. Not a team that you should be necessarily terrified of. It's a team that you should have at least a little bit of. Well, you got to second guess. Travel to Leopard Stadium. Think to yourself, you guys are pretty good, because they are. And that's how it is.
I'd like to see them get back in the league. I'd like to see them back in the league. I mean, Harry Horn, their athletic director, is such a nice lady, to us and everything. But that's got to be a scheduling nightmare for all their sports. Although basketball, because of the type of basketball team that they've had. They've really scheduled up. So it's not been. I mean, I'm sure it's been a challenge, but the type of opponents they'd like to play, maybe an independent schedule is better suited. But I'd like to see them get back in the league, because we don't get over there as much, for football that we used to.
Basketball.
Yeah, that we used to. So,
but anyways, that about covers everything that is fairly essential to know about week 2 of the high school football season. As far as I'm concerned, the only other thing that I wanted to cover is the fact that Bowling Green State University 100-yard kickoff return to start their season. Sounds up. Sorry,
Ziggy Zumba is one of your favorite songs.
Is my favorite song. I mean,
even though I didn't go to Bowling Green, I think it's the best song in the MAC.
I don't know if you saw it, but they posted their first Ziggy Zumba in the locker room after their win against Fordham, and it just gave me chills because they're all just in there and they're all banging. They're like Ziggy Zumba, 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 Ziggy Zumba, Zumba, Zay, and I love Ziggy. Really. For those of you who don't know the context, I'm a prospective Green State University student. So, for what it's worth, I root for them in the MAC every year. But talk about this. I said last week that Akron would get at least a field goal against Ohio State.
And they got 2?
And they got 2. So I'm going to take the cake for that one.
They had a lead.
Yeah!
They had a lead.
You're telling me we led 3-0. That's something. That's the MAC champion. Those are my MAC champions right there.
Well, I don't know about that, but
they'll at least win the wagon wheel.
Well, they have a good shot at doing that, but it was fun to kind of see, and I knew this was going to come some overreaction from Ohio State supporters.
No. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're not up 40-0 at halftime.
We're not up 40-0 at halftime. Oh my gosh. Our 18-year-old wide receiver who has never played a snap of college football ever before dropped a pass. The season's over. Will Howard, we paid him like $5 million to come here.
Our roster's got a $20 million payroll. I mean,
did you see the Saban quote? He was like, if you're paying you better know what you're doing if you're paying people $20 million or paying out $20 million roster. You don't, you're shit out of luck. And that's what he said on College Game Day. And I love Nick Saban. I think Nick Saban, my favorite college football.
Look, what did we talk about earlier? You gotta let a season breathe, crying out loud, man. It's just because you know what's going to happen next week. You know what's going to happen next week. Okay, what's next week? First Sunday of the NFL season. Who do the Browns play? Play the Cowboys. What's going to happen, win or lose? You know what the reaction's going to be. There's no in between. I always like to be, and maybe it's because of the job I do. I always like to be in between or whatever. They win, Super Bowl. If they lose, fire everybody.
Get everybody out.
And I saw some of the reaction because of how the Ohio State Akron game started out. It's like just let it.
You gotta let them breathe.
Yeah, I mean, just let's watch them play Oregon and make judgment. Okay, this is I don't know. It was predictable. It was predictable when I saw that, and I didn't watch that game. But when I saw that Ohio State was only up 17-3 at halftime, I thought, I know what's coming. I know what's coming. A big second half from Ohio State, and B, overreaction by Ohio State fans. So, enjoy the football season. Don't hang on to every play. Yeah. It's like what I say when, and it didn't happen this year, but Guardians are, notorious for losing home openers. Oh, the season's over.
Season's over. But that about covers everything. In week 2 of high school football. I know Mike, you wanted to say something?
Can I interject one thing?
Interject. Go.
Okay. So, and I'm only doing this because I think this will be a little therapeutic. I think Friday, you didn't have to be a hockey fan to hear about the news about what happened to Johnny Gaudreau and his brother, Matthew. Just killed in a tragic cycling.
And it's just horrible.
So I'm a big hockey fan. I'm a big hockey fan, dating back to when I was real little. Channel 9, the superstation out of New York, was on our cable. You'd see Rangers games, Islanders games. I picked the Rangers as my favorite team. Naturally, I did that, as the Islanders Stanley Cup. You had the Miracle on Ice. I love the, I really grew attached to the sport early on. And then when the Blue Jackets came, I, gravitated toward them, that NHL team in our home state. And when they were able to sign Johnny Gaudreau, who was a all-star winger from the Calgary Flames, spent his first 6 or 7 years in the NHL, I was like stunned that this guy would pick a guy of that caliber, would pick the Blue Jackets. And this just hit me like a ton of bricks Friday. Sure. It really did. And just the whole story of it was of him and his brother going home to New Jersey to be groomsmen in their sister's wedding.
That was the day before.
What was supposed to be like the happiest weekend of her life turns into like the worst. And I don't know how that family's going to recover from all of this. You have parents having to bury 2 sons, wives having to bury 2 husbands, and there was a story on our website about Johnny Gaudreau with a photo of him with his wife holding one of their little
kids
child
to the
glass while he's on the ice. That as
I saw that, I damn near broke down into tears. It's awful.
It's a terrible thing, and I just wanted to kind of get people, because I know people are not like die. The Blue Jackets got a die-hard fan base for as bad as the team has been over their 25-year stretch. Okay, it's not Ohio State fan base or whatever, but they got a die-hard. And I just wanted to kind of give people who may not know a lot about him the fact that from the people who got to know him, he was really a down-to-earth guy, top family man. He wanted to raise his family in Ohio. So I just wanted people to understand, somebody of that caliber wanted to come and play in our state, play hockey at the highest level in our state. And it's just, Friday I was such a mess about it. I actually snapped at somebody and have to apologize. So that's really not me to do that. But that guy was a good dude. And
don't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive. So just don't do it. So
yeah, the guy who hit them was alleged to have it's just it's sad. It really is. And I can't remember a time where a player of that caliber on a team, that died, while he was still playing. He was still playing, right? He was still playing
So hard
Okay.
for the
Yeah.
Redskins.
Think about the Jose Fernandez pitcher from the but not so much the hockey player. He was a good, and that's really down to earth guy. I love talking to people that, and it's not, like you and I talking right,
It's something like actually had.
Right. Yeah.
And you barely know them, and you're still having hurts.
Right. And yeah. So I like I said, I think I needed to kind of get that out like that to help me out with to do that.
Horrible tragedy. But on that note, prayers to the family and prayers to everybody affected. But that's gonna be it for this week. It's kind of hard to follow that, but I will say we do our best to share as many stories as we can. And that just so happens to be one of them. Because at the end of the day, as journalists, informed, whether that news is fun or not fun, it's our job.
Yeah, that's something, I think you're grasping that. I'm going to run into, and I've told Kaylee Zachs, who's another person we've gotten to know, who's done some work for us. There's going to be days where you're going to run into a story that is sad and tragic, but you're going to have to do, and there's going to be a time and place to react, and I think that was my place right here.
Yeah.
Back to this, so
Yeah.
So I bear with me, but I just wanted to kind of give people a good idea of what kind of this guy this was, who wanted to come and play in our state, and he Jersey Devils, the Flyers, is from New Jersey. Came here and for less, from what I understand too. So, with pro athletes, it's not always, they're not, every one of them doesn't go after the almighty last dollar,
No.
and
Some people just do it for the love of the game.
for the love of the game and for the love of their family and where they want their family to grow up.
But with that being said, that's gonna wrap it up for week 2 of the Letter Podcast here with myself and Mike Popovich. We will be back next week. As always, you can find Mike on X or Twitter at mpopovich rep, and you can find myself at Aiden Brueck. I'm now verified.
You are.
I'm verified on Twitter. I shelled out $8 a month.
There you go.
On Twitter. But so find us there. You can find us on all other social platforms at the Letter Pod, which should be linked to our Spotify page, which should be linked to our YouTube page. But that is going to be all from Mike and I this week, and we'll see you next week. All right. Give me another fist pump. Yeah.
There you go.
give me thrips. All right. Have a nice week,
Have
everybody.
a good day.
Yeah.